How do you get rid of 2,500 empty condos when construction costs have exploded and banks have begun pulling loans from projects already underway? That's not a hypothetical question, it's the nightmare reality right now in Richmond, British Columbia. This city is the epicenter of a crisis so uniquely devastating, a mix of soaring costs, collapsing demand, and a legal bombshell over property title, that the provincial government called it a moment of huge anxiety. We're not talking about a market correction. We're talking about a systemic breakdown that has created a condominium graveyard and is now pushing ordinary families to the absolute breaking point. Richmond's real estate foundation didn't just crack, it imploded, and what's happening next will shock you. Before we expose the human cost of this collapse, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to cutting through the noise and giving you the unfiltered truth about what's really happening to your money and your home. If you want to stay ahead of the next market shock, you need to be subscribed. Right now, across Metro Vancouver, 2,500 brand new condos sit completely empty and unsold. That number has doubled in the last year, representing the highest developer-owned, unsold inventory in 24 years. We are in uncharted territory. The market is officially out of gas. But why? It's a fundamental mathematical failure. Developers need to sell units for $1,100 to $1,200 per square foot just to break even, but 80% of BC residents can't afford anything above $900. The gap is unbridgeable. For years, the industry operated on the false assumption that prices would always rise, and buyers would always keep stretching. That assumption has been shattered, leaving behind a vast, empty graveyard of concrete and glass. This isn't a small bubble deflating, it's the core economic model of development collapsing in real time, and the pain is just beginning to surface. What's worse is that the builders can't even afford to finish what they've started. But that wasn't the whole story. The builders who did manage to start projects are now trapped in a vicious cycle the industry calls their double impact. Construction costs in BC have exploded. Materials like glass, steel, and even crucial smaller items, screws, electrical panels, junction boxes, are all taking weeks to source instead of days. A quote given on Monday is often invalid by Friday because suppliers can't guarantee pricing or availability. This supply chain chaos creates the first impact, months of delays. But costs don't stop climbing just because the site is stalled. They continue to escalate, meaning the tight budget a developer had becomes impossible during the delay. The president of the BC Construction Association describes current conditions as worse than anything in his entire career. Survey data shows nearly 80% of contractors can't find enough qualified workers. Electricians and carpenters are simply not available. Without workers, without materials, and with an industry in perpetual price shock, projects become financially unviable before a single shovel hits the ground. This construction show is the second catastrophic force hitting Richmond, and it's why so many developers are now teetering on the edge of financial ruin. And what happened next would shock everyone. For decades, the entire Metro Vancouver development ecosystem was built on a single, fragile foundation, foreign investor capital. Specifically, developers relied on pre-sale deposits from these investors to secure the massive construction financing needed to begin building. But that funding source has been cut off with surgical precision. Richmond, in particular, was heavily dependent on this foreign money. From 2021 to 2023, investor participation accounted for 50% of buyers. Then came the knockout punch, the federal government's ban on foreign nationals buying residential real estate, which was recently extended through 2027. This ban, combined with the earlier provincial tax, was a death blow. Investor participation collapsed from 50% to a catastrophic 7% in early 2025. When those investors disappeared, the entire pre-sale funding model collapsed right along with them. Developers are now screaming that they need all the financing they can get, yet politicians insist on curbing foreign cash to build homes for local workers. But when the lifeblood of capital is deliberately drained, projects seize up, and the available supply never gets built. But the market chaos was quickly overshadowed by a legal bombshell. As if soaring costs and collapsing demand weren't enough, Richmond was hit by a unique and terrifying legal crisis. Days ago, a court decision designated Aboriginal title over public and private property in a large part of southeast Richmond. The provincial leader himself acknowledged this created a moment of huge anxiety for homeowners. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Property owners in the claim zone reported mortgage problems, and banks began to question title security. One local councillor revealed that a $100 million shovel-ready project was derailed after its bank pulled its loan following the ruling. Major price drops are being reported because, simply put, if a bank won't lend against a property, that property is no longer worth its assessed value. As a result, property owners are now organizing mass property tax appeals on the simple, terrifying logic: if the banks won't lend, we shouldn't pay taxes on value that no longer exists. Over 700 terrified people attended a public information session, expressing sheer fear and frustration. This is an unprecedented level of legal uncertainty that has locked up a major section of the city, and the appeal could take years to resolve. This perfect storm of forces is now making its way into the homes of ordinary families. Behind the statistics are real, everyday people watching their lives unravel. Consider the family who bought a condo in 2020 for $850,000, believing they were building a foundation for their children's future. Today, their home is worth maybe $720,000. Their mortgage balance sits at $765,000. They are $45,000 underwater before even considering selling costs. But the real breaking point is the mortgage renewal. Their 5-year fixed rate, locked in at a pandemic-era low of 1.9%, is now renewing at 5.3%. Their monthly payment is about to jump from $3,100 to a crushing $4,200. They've already cut every expense. After this renewal, they won't make it. They are completely trapped, they can't afford the new payments, and they can't sell without bringing tens of thousands to closing, money they don't have. Or think about the small investor who bought 2 condos as a retirement plan. The units are now worth $100,000 less than he paid. Worse, his costs now exceed his rent by $700 a month per unit, a constant hemorrhage that is draining his savings and maxing out his credit cards. He is now considering the ultimate financial surrender, letting the bank foreclose, destroying his credit but finally ending the monthly pain. These are the human stories that show the true weight of the collapse, and the rot is spreading far beyond Richmond. Richmond's crisis isn't a one-off problem, it's a symptom of a systemic disease spreading across the entire region. Just look at the cautionary tale of Langford's Gateway project in Greater Victoria. This was supposed to be a monument to revitalization, 2 huge towers bringing affordable ownership. Instead, it became a monument to construction industry collapse. The developers defaulted, and the land is now up for court-ordered sale to cover millions of damn dollars in debt. But the true shit show is the human cost on Sunderland Road, where the abandoned, demolished homes have left neighbors living next to boarded-up houses and hazardous waste, including asbestos. It's like living in a war zone, one resident said, fearing for their health. And then there's the scandal of Ridgeview Place, a multi-million-dollar, 11-story apartment that sits fenced off and empty. Completed in 2019, it was evacuated twice due to fundamental structural and seismic flaws, problems so severe they question whether the building should have ever been approved. The building is valued at over $31 million, yet it sits vacant, providing zero housing and generating zero income. The lesson is clear: construction shortcuts, flawed financial models, and a reckless rush to build have created disasters that are now unraveling years later. The correction is here, and the final chapter is about to be written. Richmond's crisis reveals the fragility of an economy built on shattered assumptions. The assumption that population growth would continue indefinitely is gone, as BC records its largest quarterly population decline since 1951. The assumption that foreign capital would keep flowing is gone, replaced by a total ban. The assumption that housing prices would always rise is gone. The perfect storm is now colliding with the mortgage renewal wave that is set to hit hundreds of Richmond homeowners over the next 12 to 24 months, with rates locked at 2% now jumping to 5% or higher. For many, this will be the final breaking point, forcing thousands of distressed sales. The old model, build for investors, secure with pre-sales, watch prices appreciate, is broken. The full cost of this correction, the wealth destroyed, the dreams shattered, won't be clear for years. But the boom is over. The correction is severe. And Richmond's story will reshape the city's real estate market for a generation. The crisis hitting Richmond is spreading fast. The next video breaks down exactly how Victoria imploded and what it means for Vancouver Island's entire market. Click on the screen now to watch that video.